Welcome, Henry. To get us started, if you could introduce yourself and give the listeners a sense of the scale and diversity of the 35 brands that you manage at Doing Things Media.
Yeah, so I'm Henry Zhu, CFO of Doing Things Inc., and we are a New York City-based digital publisher specializing in memes. We maintain and operate over 35 brands, mostly distributed on Instagram, and some of them are on YouTube. We have about close to 100 employees across the United States, but our headquarters office is in New York City.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And because I think most financial leaders would hear 35 brands and immediately think overwhelming complexity. Could you unpack a little of that for us? What makes it more manageable than it seems on the surface?
In our case, I think the 35 brands, first off, operationally, they're structured through different clusters. So we have a structure around them. So the main bucket, we call it main brands. And the second one is the talent-led brands, which are Bob Does Sports and Resets Therapy. And third one is Overheard. And Overheard itself has a few child brands beneath that. And most of the accounts are falling under the main brands. And under main brands, we have a few pod. We have the middle class fancy pod. We have the shithead Steve pod. We have a development pod. So putting the structure around them, having dedicated or shared content resources cleanly assigned across these brands make it operationally possible on the back office support and monetization efforts. These are all through shared resources. And our approach is that the workflow and the process and procedure around covering these brands, they're the same. So 35 brands does not call for 35 different teams. So that's how I think they're manageable and scalable.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not going to discount, I know a lot of what you're able to accomplish yourself is because of your own experience and skill in Cube. So, for the audience, what specific problems were you trying to solve with Cube?
So I used Cube before this job for a few years. And prior to that, I used a few other FP&A platforms. So when I joined Doing Things about 1 year ago, the problem in front of me was pretty obvious, which is the financial reporting structure is not is not structured, and there's not a clear, well-defined financial reporting structure. In the typical digital media publisher world, you want to be able to track revenue and costs through brands, departments, and of course, geo accounts. So I knew I wanted to bring the structure to the QuickBooks instances that we were having last year. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I want to stay consistent for 25, right? It's not very advisable to change the financial reporting structure mid of the year. So I want to make a change, but I do not want to be disrupting the existing workflow, but I want to have a mapping toward the ideal financial reporting structure I have. So I need a tool to allow me to do that. And because of I've used Cube prior to this job, and I knew that Cube could handle this as long as I knew what I wanted, which I did, and as long as I partnered with the right solution architect from the Cube team, which I got. So with that, I was able to use Cube to maintain the existing old structure while mapping all the things into the new structure using Cube as a platform to maintain the two views at the same time.
That sounds amazing. And just out of curiosity, for people who haven't heard of Cube, how would you describe it?
There are many similar FP&A platforms, SaaS-based platform available in the market, similar to Cube. I did not apparently use every one of them, but I used a couple of them. So I selected Cube because it serves my needs. I think any tool could work for you, but you need to pick the one that fits your needs the best. And I'm very precise. I precisely know what my needs are. So our revenue scale, we're not $500 million, right? We're a growth stage digital media publisher. And we want some tool that is very Excel friendly. And we also need some tool that does not need to like as expensive as some other ones that are tailored for enterprise level users, hundreds of $1,000s a month, and some tool that connects with QuickBooks or NetSuite very well. So to that end, Cube checks all the boxes. And because I had used it in a prior job and it worked, so it became very natural for me to consider Cube a second time. And another reason, which I learned later on after I became a second time customer of Cube, I realized that their office was one block away from mine, and I ran into the sales gentleman on the street. So
Okay.
yeah,
That makes it even better. You know exactly where to go when things don't work.
indeed, indeed.
I'm curious if it would be possible to give an example of kind of how you use it in a day to day.
So I think I like to talk about this through two aspects. One aspect is how we use that day to day, but then I will touch upon the implementation that we went
Okay.
through. Our day to day is we make sure that there's automatic integration of data from QuickBooks into Cube, and you utilize their automatic scheduled feeding every day. We set 6 o'clock Eastern time every morning. Our two instances of our QuickBooks would be automatically fed into Cube. So every day, step into the office, we know that whatever we find in Cube is synced with QuickBooks. So it it works very well for us during the month end closing when we need to examine the data to make sure our P&L and the balance sheets are in good place before we say the month is closed. So we have a monthly run rate analysis step toward the end of the close. When the accounting manager tells the team that, oh, I'm done, I put in all the journal entries, I accrued everything, and all the invoices and credit card transactions are in QuickBooks, we would go into Cube, we would pull out a preset template, which shows the financial results by month, by brand, versus the prior period, versus
Mm.
the budget, versus same period last year. So by put the current month financial results against all the relevant checking points, we have a very good sense if our current month financial results is truly adequate. Because when you compare your, let's say, certain expense, the actual is 100, and when you compare that account against what you budget shows so you would pause either budget is overstated or your actual accrue is not adequate. So that would
Right.
pause you and you would research. So during closing process, it serves as a tool to make sure that our financial results are solid in a very efficient way. And among others, numerous others, consolidation.
Mm.
We have multiple instances in QuickBooks, and QuickBooks does not do quick consolidation. So we utilize, or we want to eventually, we want to use Cube's elimination capability such that we run the reports, we upload certain elimination information back into Cube, then let Cube spit out a fully consolidated P&L or balance sheets. And during the implementation process, what I feel that the Cube team did a great job of help us to set things up, the top level dimensions, pick the right dimension, set up the right dimension structure, especially in my needs to handle the old world versus new world.
You nailed it. That's the one challenge every time you're shifting systems or anything. It's old versus new.
Yep.
I think that was amazing. And I know from my perspective, books reporting is unique at best So seeing how you are able to not only get reporting out of there, but also integrate all divisions.
Yeah, that is actually an excellent point. So part of the reason that many of these platforms or tools, FP&A tools like Cube or Data Rail, etc., they exist exactly because partially because the Excel-based reporting capability out of from QuickBooks, it does not work. We all
No,
know that, right? So, but we need a tool. We need it to work. So naturally, you would look into a tool like Cube, who offers Excel-based reporting, integrates with QuickBooks, and you can do robust budget under different scenarios, right? All these things that you wish that QuickBooks could do it for you, but QuickBooks is not meant for that.
no.
Yeah.
You just said something that perked my attention. Basically, you said the equivalent of the what if scenarios. You can actually run forecasts and run different options within those forecasts because of Cube.
That capability is pretty standard. It's not
Sure.
unique to Cube, but a FP&A platform like Cube definitely for a given accounting year, apparently it's going to be able to offer a scenario called your master budget. Then as you step into the year, the business environment and the resource allocation needs change. As things change, you will need multiple other reforecasts, right? So we add doing things, we maintain a rolling operating forecast. We call it a ROF practice, and we call it a 1 plus 11, 2 plus 10, 3 plus 9. When you have a few months of actualization, you want to capture the actual month and you revisit the remainder of the month to always stay on top of things to understand what the full year financial outlook is looking
Yeah.
like to me as CFO and to the company management. So these numerous scenarios can be offered and handled easily, successfully by Cube. One very neat and powerful capability that Cube added a while ago, and it's not new to them at all, which is basically copy paste, right? So when you want to have a 3 plus 9 reforecast, the three would be as simple as you go to the actual scenario, you tell the cube, copy that and paste that into the Q1 results under the 3 plus 9 scenario. That's barely 1 minute. They are done. So
I think a final takeaway for other CFOs or finance leaders listening, what is the single most important piece of advice you would give them about leveraging technology
mhm.
to effectively manage scale and complexity?
I like that question a lot. And Neil, I think there are a lot of things that I would love to share. But if you were to ask me, Henry, what is the single one? What I think is that it is a notion that adoption of technology itself does not solve your problem. So the notion that, oh, my currently I'm closing my book very slow. Currently I'm go through a reforecasting cycle is taking too much time. Let me get on to XYZ Cube or Data Rail, then my problem will all be solved. Yes, you would need that tool, but what is more important is that you need to make sure your existing process and procedure is structured, governed. Otherwise, you spend the money, put a new tool trying to solve these all the problems. It does not solve these existing problems by itself. So you'd better do a little sort of kind of audit for yourself of your process and procedure, understand what are the key pain points. Then, as part of the implementation of a new technology, you get them solved. Then you can expect that the technology, the new tool, will help with you in terms of efficiency and effectiveness.
Yes, you couldn't have said better what
Mhm.
I have built my entire business around. The big thing that I always say around that, and tell me what your opinion on this is, a lot of the times when people are putting a tool in place without thinking through this before, they're putting a tool in place to solve the pain point, the symptom. They're not going back to the problem.
Exactly. A side product of that process usually is that that finance leader, because he or she did not attack the root cause of the issues beforehand, and hence the implementation did not turn out to be as successful as he or she expected. When he or she is approached by one of his peers in the network, asking him or her about his or her opinion about this tool, they tend to say, "No, it does not work. It's not good.
Yeah.
No, I don't recommend." But so what I learned is that when you approach your peer or people trying to get advice and opinion around the utilization of a tool, you always want to make sure that is the tool truly not working, or versus the way it is utilized is not the right way. So you want to, I always want to make sure that I'm talking to the right person and drill down to feel out what exactly the root cause of the lack of satisfaction from the use of a new tool.
Thank you
Mhm.
so much for your time today, Henry.
Yeah, yeah,
This has been absolutely incredible. I'm glad to hear Cube is working so well for you, and I
mm,
hope it works well for others as well.
yeah. And thank you for having me